Bien, bonsoir, messieurs, dames. Ce fut un exercice étonnant. Et je suis bien heureux de pouvoir parler français, soudainement et publiquement. Un exercice étonnant en ceci qu'il était assez difficile de vraiment mettre des propositions de l'avant.
To really put forward some ideas, but I don't think there is any point in revisiting the formula. If we can send across a few messages, well, I would like to have a positive debate, and this was not easy under the circumstances. I am happy that that I went through it and I didn't cause too much damage. That's it. Any questions? Lina Deep of the Canadian Press. Did you understand that Jacques Singh's position had changed tonight? Well, it's hard to understand any position on secularism. We have Mr. Scheer.
C'est pas un sombre député inconnu. Alain Reyes est le plus proche collaborateur de M. Scheer au Québec.
And his closest associate in Quebec challenged me on the fact that only Andrew Scheer will be able to protect Bill 21 in Ottawa. Mr. Scheer
vient avec le fait de s'exprimer en anglais. À l'endroit d'un auditoire
he's attempted to speak English to a Western Canadian audience, and some aspects were more prominent. We realized that there was some kind of a variation between open hostility on Bill 21 and the desire to attack Justin Trudeau on that. And Mr. Scheer's attempt to say, well, we'll do nothing. It was a kind of an atmosphere of tolerance, tolerating the fact that Quebec wants to be a nation and wants to pass its secularism bill, and tolerating the fact that Quebec wants to protect its language. So that really eventually got to me. Do we have to ask anybody permission to be who we are, to speak our language, and to protect the values that are ours? That's fundamental. That's what a nation entails. I think in the best case, well, if you don't cause too much trouble, we will tolerate you. Well, I don't think Quebecers want to be tolerated. I think Quebecers want to be a full-blown nation. Now, in terms of the form and the substance, what did you learn for Thursday? Well, the main thing that the take-home message is that they're after me. So, but the other thing is, it would be interesting to ask party leaders to repeat in full in French some things they stated in English. That might really help with the future debate. And it's true about the secularism discussion and as well as on the environment. By the way, I'm disappointed that Mr. Trudeau did not answer the question concerning Quebec's demand for that the authorizations for environmental assessments should have priority, and there was no answer, and that there should be no pipelines crossing Quebec now or in the future. No answer to that. So I conclude from that Quebecers have to be careful with Mr. Trudeau as well as Mr. Scheer. Vincent Frozier of Radio-Canada. I know many colleagues have a lot of questions, so please, can we be brief? So, Mr. Singh tonight said the door was open to him intervening at the Supreme Court. And you talked about protecting the secularism bill. So, do you intend to bring out these contradictions next Thursday? I think it's clear. I think the parties tonight that were there, I think this is just election posturing to say that they're tolerating Bill 21 because they don't want to lose votes in Quebec. But I'm under no illusion, and I reiterate that funding the Bill 21, well, it's the government that funded organizations to challenge Bill 21. And then the government will say, well, it's not my fault. It's organizations challenging your bill. Well, what do you understand when they say we want to protect the Secularism Act? Well, my understanding is that that is stronger than tolerating. Because when you protect something, you're going to do something for. So Mr. Hayes said only the Conservative Party could really protect Bill 21 in Parliament. So when I put the question to Mr. Scheer, he didn't say that at all. He basically stated we will do nothing even though we're not for that bill.
CBC News. Do you see any real difference between the Federalist parties in terms of their stance on Law 21?
I think that they were well aware that, Western Canada and Ontario and other times were listening to that debate. I am not certain that they kept well aware of the fact that Quebec also was listening to that debate. And I waited for that day for everybody to see the obvious contradictions between what they say in French and in Quebec and what they say when they're not in Quebec.
Did you see any difference, though? Do you think, do you find any leader better or worse than another?
I would admit something in favor of Mr. Trudeau. He is clear. He is going to fight this law, which is deeply against what he is and his heritage. Fine. I'm not sure that's what Quebec wants, but at least it's clear. Mr. Scheer and Mr. Singh are much less clear. People have a right within the next 2 weeks to know precisely what to expect from any of those two leaders, and I intend to have clear answers on Thursday.
If I could just ask you one more question. Who were you speaking to tonight?
I was speaking, actually, I had this plan of showing that we want to be friends with Canada and just make things differently. The partnership should be different. I didn't have much of an occasion to do that. I kept well aware of the fact, for my part, that Quebec was listening to.
M. Blanchet, Michel Lamarche, TVA. Si on revient à la loi 21, les libéraux nous disent qu'il n'y a pas du tout
Going back to Law 21, liberals are saying there is no change in the position of their leader, Justin Trudeau, and that the door is simply open. In tonight's debate, that's not what you heard from the Prime Minister, right? Well, it seemed to go a bit further. We have to realize, well, I have to realize that, and it's normal, because people are taking care of their electoral base, whether we want it or not. When Mr. Trudeau speaks English, part of the Francophone audience is listening less, so he gets away with that. When he's speaking in French, it might be different. But at the same time, Mr. Trudeau's position is at least clearer. He said, I will do what I have to do. So we understand clearly that on the 22nd of October, well, if you want to attack Law 21, I'll be there for you. The government, the federal government's money, including money collected in the form of taxes from Quebec, could be used to fight a law that was voted by 70% of MNAs and supported by 70% of Quebecers. You said earlier that on Thursday, they will all want to go after me. Why would they need to go after you on Thursday? Well, I always take this with a grain of salt because I don't believe in polls because it's just a statistical exercise. Now, you would have to be living under a rock to realize, not to realize that the Bloc is rising in the polls. And when that happens, it could cost the government in power, the current government, or the Conservatives, or it could cost the Liberals their majority, or it could beat back the Green surge. I'm not saying that will happen. That is not up to me. It's up to Quebecers. And quite humbly, I am counting on their good judgment, and that's what democracy is about. But I feel that in the last French debate, they will try to really go after me, in as much as it's in French. Well, I'll have a bigger comfort zone.
Mr. Blanchet, are we going back and forth? Key in Rebel News. My question is...
I won't answer Rebel News.
Okay, well, I'll keep asking the question because the judge said that we could be here and ask questions, so I'll continue to ask the question. Western separatism is on the rise, and if TMX is canceled by a May-Singh-Trudeau coalition, that intention will inevitably spike even more. What's your advice to Albertans who think that Confederation is broken?
My answer is that I won't answer you. Est-ce que vous voulez quand même faire une autre question?
Do you still want to put another question to me?
Okay.
All right.
Merci beaucoup.
Mr.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to.
I want to know your reaction to Western Canada objecting to Bill 21. We saw the Manitoba Premier contested. We know the Calgary City Council is against it. Is that appropriate for Western Canada to be intervening in this?
Canada is entitled to its own values, as well as Quebec is entitled to its own values. We should be friends and partners. Now we have to fight over an issue which should belong to the nation of Quebecers, because some people elsewhere think that in their values we don't have a right to do that. But I would simply want them to respect the fact that this is the normal jurisdiction of the Assemblée nationale du Québec and no one else's.
And on reconciliation, you talked about having these encounters, these lovely encounters with First Nations people.
Yes.
Is that not a little insensitive with the Viam report that just came out, the Val-d'Or report?
I don't understand what you mean.
Sure.
I had encounters with people from the First Nations. Those were great moments in the campaign. And I think that our society has a long overdue obligation to start listening, but I mean really listen to what they say, what they ask, what they need. They are as much a nation, each one of them, as Quebec is a nation and as Canada is a nation, but we keep in our mind thinking of what we will do for or about them as if they did not have the same rights as we do.
Merci.
Merci.